Coming up on today's episode, we take a look at the new religious horror movie, Immaculate.
Out of all the women in the world, why did he choose me? How can we trust what's inside you?
Stay tuned. Welcome to Scary World, where we walk you through the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I am your host, Arturo Padilla.
Hi.
For those of you just joining us, this is a spoiler-free show.
I'm not going to spoil the surprise.
Now that we got that out of the way,
We got some rules around here.
there are 5 categories: production, story, ensemble, horror, and legacy. Each category can score up to 2 points.
Showtime.
Per IMDb, the synopsis goes, Cecilia,
Cecilia would adore it.
a woman of devout faith,
Well, we've got a lot of faith here.
is warmly welcomed to the picture-perfect Italian countryside,
Just appreciating the countryside.
where she is offered a new role at an illustrious convent.
God has brought you to our convent school.
But it becomes clear to Cecilia that her new home
This is my home.
harbors dark and horrifying secrets.
Trade secrets.
Production.
We have such sights to show you.
This movie was directed by Michael Mohan. He previously directed the movie The Voyeurs, which also starred Sydney Sweeney. So these two have a familiarity with each other, and it shows in this movie. This movie looks good. It's overall pieced well together. It's executed very well. There are some excellent shots used in the latter part of the movie that really accentuate and elevate those scenes 100,000%. It's kind of like night and day, unfortunately, with this movie. The beginning and the very end are absolutely excellent and definitely worth the price of admission. But the middle of this movie just drags so much that it kind of hurt the whole entire production. But there are a lot of very good things done production-wise and technique-wise in this movie. As mentioned, there are some really, really good shots that are executed here by the filmmaker throughout the movie. And they're nice close-up shots of just horror and gore, and it looks fantastic. Aside from those close-up gore shots, we get some really nice wide shots of landscapes showing you the true isolation that this convent is located in, and the isolation that our protagonist Cecilia goes through. And it's translated very well through the shots and the composition of those scenes.
God saved me for a reason, but I guess I'm still searching for what that reason is.
There's a nice vibe to it, a nice look. The sound is very creepy. It aids in the dark vibe that it's trying to accomplish here. I do wish that the same care in composition of those excellent scenes and sequences were taken in the middle of the movie. It looks like they forgot about the middle and just had some really cool ideas for the beginning and end. And production-wise, it shows. It's weird, but it shows. It's very stale in the middle, and then it ramps up in action very quickly in the third act. And for the beautiful shots and the excellent close-ups of gore and blood that we get in this movie, this is a very extremely solid 1 for production. Story.
Second act needs work.
This script and this story was written by Andrew Lobel. This is his first feature script, and it kind of shows. As mentioned in the previous section, there is a really big lull in the middle of this movie, and that sucks because you start at a very extreme high note, and the tension and suspense is super high in that opening sequence, and then it just kind of nosedives all through the rest of the first act, all through the majority of the second act. It's very slow. You can call it a slow burn because that's what it is ultimately, but it's too slow. The character, the protagonist herself, I wish they would have given her more of a solid background or more of a background story to kind of go by. Her character is very bland and very boring, and I feel that that is a detriment to the middle of this movie here. But aside from that huge lull in the second act, the core concept of this movie, it's good. It's a good concept. It's not unique or original by any means, but it's a familiar trope that is wrapped up in this religious horror framework, and it works. It works until the reveal, and I think that's a factor of the slow pacing in the middle. If they had dropped little hints here and there about what was going on, that this wasn't really all good, that there was some, hijinks and suspicious stuff going on in that convent, it would have worked out a lot better story-wise. That being said, folks, the third act of this thing is like 0 to 100 in a matter of a half a second. Man, it really ramps up in everything. It ramps up in gore, it ramps up in action, it ramps up in just storytelling and character development. We see Sydney Sweeney and her character Cecilia pretty much flip a switch and just become this completely different person that I wish we were able to see more throughout the movie. Instead, we get this very docile, very soft-spoken character that doesn't really play well on screen. As mentioned, luckily, she was surrounded by other characters that helped Cecilia get through those scenes. But again, the ending is absolutely fantastic. The beginning is absolutely fantastic as well, and it gets you going. This is why it's so disappointing when there's such a nosedive in momentum, that you're like, what happened? What happened in that first scene? Like, I've been sitting here for an hour and nothing's really kicked in. And so for that, this movie gets another solid one for story. I wish they would have done some extra things in the middle there. Ensemble.
She's an actress. She's acting.
All right, folks, this is where things get a little bit fuzzy. So the supporting characters here were fine. The actors that were portraying those supporting characters, they did their thing. They did their best with those characters, and it came off well, especially this one nun called Gwendolyn that befriended Cecilia. She was on point, and I loved her energy, and it helped Cecilia in those scenes because you had somebody to play off of that was hyper energetic in comparison to Cecilia. A big gripe of mine, it was the villain here. The antagonist was not very good. I'm not gonna really say the name or anything like that. I'm looking at my notes here. Remember, spoiler free. But yeah, it was just bad. And that's my issue when I was talking about the story in the previous section, that when the reveal happens, you're like, okay, kind of saw this coming. What else can we do here to make it different? And that's when the third act shows up and completely just flips us around and gives us a heck of a finale. But Sydney Sweeney in that finale, folks, this woman can act. She has the acting chops to really do something special here. That's why I definitely wish they would have given her more to do in the earlier part of the movie, because she was willing and ready to showcase her talent. And that's what happens in that third act. My goodness. Like, not just in the third act, leading up to the third act, she begins to flex those acting chops. And that's why it's a damn shame that they didn't give her character more of a developed background, more of a emotional background where she could actually go through the emotional roller coaster. And, and when we get to that climax in Act 3, we're like already at a high because she's been doing so well. But the character is kind of the complete opposite of what we get in that third act. As mentioned before in the story segment, this character is very soft-spoken, very docile, very polar opposite of what we get in that last sequence. And I think that's a detriment to the story and to the character itself. I think it's a detriment to Sydney Sweeney because she shows here that she is very capable of doing some excellent work. It's just a matter of giving it to her. I definitely would like to see her in some more horror, but maybe as a heel, maybe as a villain. I think her acting style and the way she portrays herself on screen would suit her best as a really good villain, like a Mia Goth style in Infinity Pool type villain. It looks like she could definitely go to that range and hang out there for a while. She was very impressive in that last act there. But as mentioned, unfortunately, she doesn't do much before that. And for that, this movie gets a 1 for ensemble. Horror.
Is it scary?
My goodness, folks. If I do have to recommend one thing about this movie, it's the blood, the violence, the brutality. It's all absolutely gorgeous. It's well done. It's well shot. The majority of it is very practical. I think there are some blending of CG there, but you get so much practical that the CG stuff, it doesn't even matter at that point. And where that CG is, I don't know. There could be one scene in the latter part of the movie I'm not going to get into that there could be some CG use there, but by that point, you're just like drenched in blood and you're like, I don't care, just give me what you got. And this is what I brought up again about this story, that it goes from 0 to 100 in the third act there, and we get all this violence and brutality. The kills are all hanging out in that third act. I wish we would have gotten some more imagery, some more violence in the middle of the movie to really kind of liven up that second act. It really desperately needs it because it is quite boring, unfortunately. But luckily for us, we do get some moments there that do liven up those scenes. For instance, there's one moment where a nun sacrifices herself and jumps off out of a window, I think, or something along those lines, and they show it. They show it. They're not afraid to actually look away from it. They're not afraid to turn the camera away and give you just reactions. They show the aftermath of everything here, and they linger. They don't linger too much, like in Terrifier, for instance. They linger just the right amount to make an impact and make you aware of like, wow, this has gotten to a point where it's escalated extremely to the umpteenth degree here, and the violence reflects that. And for that awesome violence, the awesome brutality, the practical stuff, the end alone, folks, my goodness, the end alone, the beginning, you get an awesome broken leg scene there, super suspenseful. The actress does a great job in that opening sequence. They do a very good job with the horror in this movie, and for that, it gets an extremely solid 2 for horror. Legacy.
What do you think?
This movie for sure will leave behind quite a legacy because of the ending. I'm not sure how many times I'm going to have to say this on this review here, but that ending is really what makes this movie. If you catch The Morgue dropping on Tuesday, tomorrow, you guys will hear the whole spoiler review that me and Tex have for you guys on Immaculate, and we go through everything, all the kills, all the awesome sequences, and why this movie was close to being a pay for it. Unfortunately, we thought because of that big lull in the middle, it was hard to recommend it because you had to sit through about an hour and change of a lot of nothing going on, to be honest. A lot of just setting up of the vibes and, you know, exposition. So that's why it was really hard to tell you guys to go pay for it. But folks, like, the minute this thing hits VOD rental, please, like, spend your money on this. The first sequence and the last sequence of this movie are truly extremely great horror filmmaking, and I wish we would have kept that momentum going throughout the movie, man. The beginning and the end were both violent and brutal, and everything this movie set out to be. This is why it's hard to sit here and tell you guys, hey, you can wait for it and stuff, because that ending was just so good. We've gotten some good horror movies this year with really good endings. Stop motion being one of them. This is definitely another one of them. Late Night with the Devil is also another one of those movies with a really good ending. And we'll talk more about that on the Wednesday show, folks. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, this movie definitely will, you know, keep a nice place in my mind because of that last act. And I think you guys will agree. And this is why it gets a solid 1 for legacy. So to tally it up, Immaculate received a 1 for production, 1 for story, 1 for ensemble, 2 for horror, and a 1 for legacy, bringing its total up to 6. This was a solid movie, folks. I keep talking about that lull in the middle, but just talking more about that ending and reminiscing about how the events of the movie unfolded in the third act, it is hard to really sit here and tell you guys to wait for this. But I do have to be honest with you, it does get a little boring in the middle, and you have to push through that. They do try and offer up little sprinkles here and there of very creepy vibes in order to keep you sucked into the movie. But man, stay sucked in, because that third act really... oh, it really shines, folks. It really does shine. And it puts a smile on my face because that's what horror filmmaking is all about. Go watch Immaculate in theaters now.
Can you tell me what time it is?
And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you for watching Scary World. Don't forget to drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up on the video. Most importantly, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell all your friends, your family, your pets, and all your other buddies to come to the YouTube page and subscribe to CorpseFeed. We have spoiler-free horror movie reviews for you guys, dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you can catch The Morgue, the official CorpseFeed podcast, dropping on Tuesdays, where we spoil everything and go in depth with news and other reviews. We will see you on Wednesday when we cover Late Night with the Devil. And remember, it's a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.
I just wanted to say goodbye.